Lexie Hull steps into a rhythm 3 and lets it fly like she's tossing a weight off her shoulders. Pure nylon. The moment the net snaps, the building jolts and Caitlin Clark pops off the bench like a spring, grinning and clapping because she knows what that one shot means. It isn't a routine make. It's the first crack in a dam that's been holding everything back. Confidence, swagger, the green light she hasn't really felt in weeks. Chicago can feel it too. One clean swish and the temperature in the gym changes. Suddenly, the Fever, who walked in without Clark and without a true point guard, don't look short-handed. They look dangerous. The Sky came in hungry after a rough stretch and a season series they've trailed the entire way. But Indiana's energy says something different. The schedule, the injuries, the what now? None of it matters. With the crowd rumbling and Clark's sideline reaction turning the make into a moment, Hull starts to move like the game finally belongs to her again. And when she moves like that, the rest of the Fever start playing faster, louder, freer. One shot and the floor feels bigger, the rim wider, and Chicago's margin for error suddenly paper thin. Indiana's road trip looked like a statement run until it became a stress test. Phoenix and Los Angeles didn't just beat the Fever, they pressed on every bruise. Then came the double blow that would rock most locker rooms. Caitlin Clark already out since July 15th with quad and groin issues, no firm timetable. And in one night against Phoenix, the backcourt lost both safety nets. Cydney Coulson's knee buckled. ACL tear, season over. Ari McDonald fought through the fourth quarter until the pain in her foot told the truth. Fracture, season over. 2 point guards gone in a matter of hours. The trade deadline had passed, which meant no lifeline, no quick fix, just the roster you have and the will to reinvent yourselves before the next tip. Chicago circled that date as an opportunity. Indiana wounded, identity under question, chemistry stretched thin. That's when the Fever had a choice: lean into panic, or lean into the principles they'd been building since camp. Leadership from Stephanie White mattered here. So did the voices in the room. Aaliyah Boston's calm, Kelsey Mitchell's fire, Sophie Cunningham's edge. If the last 48 hours looked like an ambush, Indiana treated them like an invitation to prove they're more than one star and a depth chart. By committee. It sounds polite, but it's actually ruthless in the best way. Coach Stephanie White stripped away the clutter and asked her team to be themselves. Harder, sharper, sooner. Without a traditional point guard, you don't survive by calling 30 set plays. You survive by shrinking the playbook and expanding the trust. Bigger lineups become leverage. Aaliyah Boston turns every rebound into a launch pad. Wings and guards take turns initiating. Kelsey Mitchell leading most trips. Sophie Cunningham toggling into quick handoffs or early drag screens. Shooters lifting on the weak side so decisions stay simple. Hit the pop, skip to the corner, or knife to the rim. Instead of complex actions, Indiana leaned on pace, ball pressure, and first reads. You could see it in how quickly they flowed from a stop into offense. No hunting cute. Just get downhill, force help, and punish rotations. Chicago expected hesitation. Indiana gave them certainty. And when certainty meets effort, small advantages pile up. Deflections turn into numbers. Numbers turn into layups. Layups turn into a crowd that smells blood. By committee isn't a patch. It's a philosophy. 5 minds, 1 pulse. Where the best option wins the possession, not the most familiar one. Slumps don't just live in your shooting hand. They live in your thoughts. For weeks, Lexie Hull's jumper had been a haunted house. Every open look carried the echo of the last miss. 2 for 25 from 3 across 2 weeks, a 1 for 11 night in Phoenix with an 0 for 8 from deep. That's not random variance, that's a full-blown spiral. The worst part isn't the number, it's the hesitation that bleeds into everything else. Your cuts get slower, your spacing gets timid, your eyes drift to the bench after you let one go. Then comes the talk. Kelsey Mitchell pulled her aside after Phoenix and made the promise every teammate wants to hear and every shooter needs. We're still counting on you. Not a pep talk, permission to be herself again. So when Hull's first 3 against Chicago ripped through, it was like smashing a window in that mental prison. Body language changed. She started hunting creases, relocating decisively, catching on balance. Teammates felt it. The bench felt it. Caitlin Clark telegraphed it from the sideline with that instant eruption. By the end of the night, Hull's line, 4 for 6 from deep, 17 points plus 22, read like a confession. This is who I am when I stop asking for permission. The final 3 was the signature at the bottom, and the grin afterward said everything the stat sheet couldn't. Kelsey Mitchell has always been the solution when you need points now. The twist against Chicago was that Indiana needed something subtler and harder, a conductor who sees the second defender before the first one arrives. Early on, you could almost watch her brain rewiring in live speed, eyes scanning for windows instead of seams to attack, pacing possessions so cutters could arrive on time. Then the rhythm landed. She began slotting bounce passes into tight spaces, pitching ahead before Chicago's guards turned their heads, dragging two and hitting the release on the short roll. The season-high 8 assists told a story, but the 1 turnover clip told the lesson: control without caution, aggression with purpose. And the best part? She never shelved the scoring. When the Sky sat on passing lanes, Mitchell stunned them with the hesita glass, the step back, the late clock jab. It was the equilibrium of a star who can win possessions 2 ways and knows exactly when to switch. That balance elevated everyone else. Boston's catches were cleaner, Sophie Cunningham's runs more dangerous, Lexie Hull's rhythm steady. Nothing about it felt forced. It felt like Kelsey discovered a new room in a house she already loved, and made it livable for everyone. If you're going to share ball handling, you have to take something back somewhere else. Indiana took it back on defense. They smothered first touches, jammed handoffs, and turned what Chicago wanted, calm half-court execution, into a constant sprint. You could see the emphasis, hands busy on the perimeter, digs at the nail, and a commitment to make every paint touch feel claustrophobic. The prize for that chaos was pace. Aaliyah Boston vacuumed rebounds and pivoted into instant outlets. Kelsey Mitchell pushed with purpose, eyes up, dribble down, and Sophie Cunningham became the blade that cut the open lane. Those 2-on-1 sequences piled up. Deflection, run, simple pass, 2 points. No overthinking, no heroics. Just fast, fundamental basketball that punishes teams who are half a step slow. And because the Fever simplified, they removed unforced errors. Quick decisions keep turnovers down and bodies fresh. Shooters like Hull could trail in transition and step into clean looks. Slashers could beat a defense that wasn't set. By the time Chicago tried to slow the game, Indiana had already banked a dozen easy points that make everything else easier. Your sets get cleaner, your margin widens, and your opponent starts hearing footsteps that aren't there. Give Chicago credit. They looked for answers. But the Sky spent the night running into a wall they couldn't climb. The paint belonged to Aaliyah Boston, who turned drives into detours and post entries into 50-50s. When Angel Reese tried to impose her will around the rim, the cavalry arrived early. Digs from the nail, quick bumps, late contests that bothered touch shots without fouling. On the perimeter, Indiana contested rhythm threes and forced extra dribbles, which is the quiet way you steal a team's timing. And every time the Sky bent out of shape, loose handle, forced pass, Indiana flipped the court. That's where Sophie Cunningham hurt them most, sprinting lanes, beating matchups to spots, cutting off hesitation. Meanwhile, Kelsey Mitchell kept toggling from connector to scorer, refusing to let Chicago sit on either tendency. The series history mattered too. When a team has your number, you feel it, especially after the first wave hits and the scoreboard starts inching away. The Sky needed a momentum play or two to change the air. Indiana denied them those oxygen pockets. By the fourth quarter, the Fever didn't just have control, they had evidence. Chicago couldn't get comfortable in any phase, and that's how a 22-point gap opens without a blizzard of threes or a single player dropping 35. Final score, 92-70. Another notch in a season sweep that stings for Chicago and sings for Indiana. But what makes this win resonant isn't the math, it's the meaning. With no Clark and no traditional point guard, the Fever didn't shrink, they clarified. Coach Stephanie White has been loud about recruiting quality humans who lift the room. And on nights like this, it shows up on the floor as 10 extra points of connectivity. You saw it every time they found Lexie Hull again after a miss, every time a big boxed out a second body so a guard could clear the rebound, every time Kelsey Mitchell waved someone through to set up a better angle. That is culture, and culture is what wins when plans break. The switch to bigger lineups didn't become an excuse, it became an edge. More length in gaps, more hands in passing lanes, more pressure on a defense trying to match up in transition. And here's the ripple effect. Opponents can't label Indiana as one-dimensional anymore. Try to blitz their star later? Fine, there's a team underneath that can pass tests. This wasn't survival. This was a message written in permanent ink. The Fever are more than their headline. What sticks after the highlights fade is how Indiana learned in public. They took a messy hand, injuries, tough losses, a roster pivot, and turned it into a performance that travels into spring. Lexie Hull didn't just hit shots, she reclaimed pace, footwork, and the trust of her instincts. Kelsey Mitchell didn't just rack up assists, she proved she can pilot a game without muting her own scoring threat. Aaliyah Boston kept the backbone sturdy, the glass honest, the lane inhospitable. Sophie Cunningham threaded the spaces in between, running the floor, making quick reads, doing the connective things that transform good possessions into runs. That's playoff DNA. Win the ugly stretches, decide the math in transition, and put your best players in roles that let others breathe. Now picture this with Caitlin Clark back, healthy and humming. Defenses can't just scheme away one star if 4 other pieces already move like a system. The Fever didn't chase a moral victory. They banked a real one, large font, against a rival that needed it badly. If this is the baseline for the shorthanded version, the full-strength edition is going to be a problem you can't solve with a single adjustment. Comment Fever Show if you felt the shift, because it wasn't subtle, it was a warning. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video. Thanks.